One of the more interesting questions that comes up is whether or not the Antichrist knows he is the Antichrist. Is he aware of his place in the end times, or is he perhaps so involved with himself that he has no time for or concept of Bible prophecy? Fortunately, the Bible does give us some insight as to whether or not the Antichrist will know who he is. More precisely, it gives us insight as to when the Antichrist will know who he is. That insight can be found in one of the biblical names for the Antichrist, which is the son of perdition. And that is because son of perdition is used for only one other figure in the Bible, Judas Iscariot. Judas and the Antichrist also have one other thing in common. Judas betrayed Jesus, and the Antichrist betrays Israel and Christianity when he enters the third temple and claims to be God. These two sons of perdition are both betrayers. In the case of Judas, the first son of perdition, a very important event happened to cause him to betray Jesus. He was possessed by Satan. In fact, the Bible tells us of two separate occasions when this happened. First, in Luke 22:3, we read that Satan entered into, or possessed, Judas just before he approached the chief priest to tell them he was willing to betray Jesus. Second, in John 13:27, we read that Satan entered into Judas just after he took the bread at the Last Supper and just before he left to lead the chief priest to find Jesus. Thus, we can see that it was Satan possessing Judas that prompted him to go out and betray Jesus. It was at that point that Judas knew what he had to do, and he went out and did it. By betraying Jesus, Judas became the son of perdition. His actions opened his eyes as to what he had become. Later, after he learned that Jesus was to be crucified, Judas was filled with such great remorse that he killed himself. The second son of perdition, or the Antichrist, will likewise have a moment when he betrays Israel and Christianity. He will break his own covenant with many, enter the Jewish third temple, and proclaim himself to be God. This is a watershed moment in Bible prophecy. It's what brings about the final 3.5 years of the Antichrist rule, which includes the false prophet coming on the scene, the fake miracles, the image that is given life, and the mark of the beast. Importantly, this is when the Antichrist is given 42 months to continue. Who does the giving? Who is it that empowers the Antichrist? The Bible says that the power of the Antichrist is great, but it's not his own. And it also says that his coming is accompanied by the power of Satan. Putting these verses together, we can see that in the same manner that Satan possessed Judas, the first son of perdition, to betray Jesus, so he will also possess the Antichrist, the second son of perdition, to betray Israel and Christianity. And just as Judas, after being possessed, understood what he had done and who he had become by betraying Jesus, so will the Antichrist, after being possessed, also understand who he is upon betraying Israel and Christianity. Because of that, the man who now matches how the Bible describes the Antichrist likely doesn't know, or perhaps even doesn't care, that he is the man of sin. He may not even have any concept of end times prophecy dealing with these things, as his world entirely revolves around himself. But the time is coming when he will break his own covenant with many. He will betray Israel and betray Christianity. He will enter the third temple and proclaim himself to be God. At that time, he will fully know who he is. But one difference between these two sons of perdition is that where Judas had such great remorse that he eventually killed himself, the Antichrist will instead proclaim himself to be God. He will be given 42 months to continue, and he will look to rule the entire world.